to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stockbox interview. Joining us today on Stockbox is Andrew Bell, the CEO of Redrock Resources. Andrew, I believe you're joining us from Kenya, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
And what's it like over there? What are you up to?
Well, it's been raining every afternoon since I got here. So I spent most of the time in the hotel having meetings, going out for one or two meetings as well. So I met some key government people, which is always necessary, and some of our advisors here, and also some of our staff who came up to join some of these meetings. So we had a lot of good planning time and good catch-up time.
Okay, good. Well, today we're doing a bit of a Q&A. We put out a tweet and asked investors to submit questions. So I'm just going to ask the questions really to you. So they are mostly Kenya focused, I think. So it's quite good that you're also out there yourself. But the first one is, what is the view of the value comparison between Migori and its neighbour Caracal, capitalised at over £25 million? What is the value of Kenya and how can you get that message across?
Well, there are different ways to assess the value of Kenya. If you look at our resource compared with other people, then you'd be able to make a greater range of values. There's also what we think we can make it worth through exploration, the exploration that we're doing currently, and the fact that it has been invisible for several years because our local partner, the ministry, tried to take it off and we had to go to court to get it back. So no updates and no information has really been there since about 2012, substantially. And we have, since we got the licenses back late last year, we have done a resource update by CSA, and we've started a drill program, and we're doing geophysics, so that's generating new targets, and we will have drill results, and we hope that will lead to an improvement in the resource. So all of those things have been happening, and we're sort of building up steam. Now, what's Caracal? Caracal is a different proposition. They have what they have, quote, production, which I think is the production from their processing plant rather than their mine. When we looked at this project before they got into it, we concluded the right thing would have been to keep the mine closed because there'd been no mine development. And we know that if you've got a plant, you haven't done enough mine development, the feed that you're putting into the plant would be too variable in grade and characteristics in order to get a good performance and good return. It makes it difficult to be profitable. And the Caracal, the mine there, obviously needed that. But the right thing we thought would be to close it, to do that, and at the same time to explore and to get some resources and reserves nearby, so to build up a JORC that you could actually then start feeding into the mine. I mean, they have chosen to go a different way, which is saying that they're a producer and be able to produce quote figures for gold produced, and they've been scavenging far and wide to get sort of bits of gold from other people's properties. And we have some questions about that, because some of it's coming from our properties. But having transported some of this vast distances, then putting stuff of different grades into a plant, I can believe that they can produce gold. I can believe even maybe they can produce it on a cash flow even basis. I cannot believe they're making a profit. And therefore, I don't think that I would use their market capitalization as the basis for any comparison, whatever. As to what we're doing, we're in a different business, which is to build up a quality. We're not on the standard list. We've got an AIM listing. We do everything with the proper advisors. We drill properly. We built up a resource. We are aiming for the big prize of having a large resource, and we have a database that we could invite any major into to look at and potentially do a deal off the back of without shame if it measures up. And the work we're doing now feeds into that. We have something like 4 terabytes of data already. It's going to be a lot more.
Okay. Now, is the nearby processing plant mentioned in the Migori video, is it Caracal's? And are there any immediate plans to process the tailings to generate revenues for Redrock?
The tailings at the opposite end of our licenses. And as I say, the distance is prohibitive. And that would be particularly the case in the tailings material, which is by its nature lower grade. However, a plant that we put up over that would be specialist for extracting what was in the tailings. And, and you wouldn't want to be combining it with, for example, there's a local businessman who's putting up a CIP plant just near the tailings. We couldn't feed material from tailings into that because he's going to want high-grade material from round and about to feed into that. He's not going to want huge volumes of low-grade material from the tailings, messing that up. It's definitely not the optimal use of that plant once it gets going. And we know that the gold in the tailings is going to be slightly refractory, which is why it hasn't been extracted already for first processing. And so it needs a different plant. So that if we were developing a mine in the Western license in particular, the fact that the CIP plant is about to come into operation there would be a material consideration, and we could work with that.
Okay. Now, Redrock has a large portfolio of projects. Does Redrock have the team in place to manage the portfolio?
Well, it certainly does. What we have done is we've created decentralized management. In the lockdown, made this somewhat more necessary than before, and it encouraged us on what I think is the powerful virtue anyway. In our Australian gold assets, we have an Australian team running it, top to bottom. Good people, they all live locally, they all have experience in exactly this kind of mineralization, below ground and above ground, and we haven't interfered. And so we're very proud of the fact that we now have a team that runs itself and can do everything. We, of course, participate, have weekly meetings. In the case of that subsidiary, Paul and I get on the phone, a weekly meeting every week, have conversations in between. But the most of that's been done by the local people. Similarly, in Kenya, we have a very good local team, a quite exceptional manager here, and he's got all the experience necessary. He's doing a fantastic job. He's a Kenyan. We wouldn't want to replace him. We wouldn't want to bring the expatriates to do what he's doing. If we were developing a plant, once we get to that stage, then we will bring in the skills necessary for running a major project like that. We need to bring in materials and supplies and conduct construction of a plant with many different inputs arriving at the right time. We're not at that stage, but the exploration stage where administering, dealing with government relations, community relations, all those things, we're well set up to do that at the moment. You, of course, have a switchover of teams once you get to the stage that you're going into development and production. That isn't the stage where I'm at. Okay. In our other jurisdictions where we operate, we have partnerships essentially with the local people, great experience, who are running things locally. That is in Burkina Faso and in Côte d'Ivoire. Very experienced, 20, 30 years experience across administration and geology. And we have, as the liaison there, Ali Barrow, who is our data manager, the geologist in the London office, who's worked with both these people in the past and has worked in both these countries. So I'd say we have a decentralized, very effective mode of operation, works perfectly for an exploration company. And where we need additional skills to come in, we can hire consultants in.
Okay, so it's more about the local teams that you're putting in place on a project by project basis.
Yes, it is also true that as we get more, we're coming out of a poor time for markets. Since 2016, we've been able to start building up as other people have. Markets are looking better. We have more projects, and with more projects, there comes more central administration and control necessary, even just on the financial side. We are actually going to bring in somebody who has worked in major companies and doing that exactly the sort of thing we're negotiating at the moment. Our principal candidate for that, we're in negotiation with. If we don't get him, we get someone similar. And the characteristics of these people, you expect them to be paid more than me, because they will have, you can have people who work for big companies. They get paid hundreds of thousands to do these jobs and get more and more senior. Or you can have people who've worked in a sort of small AIM type company all their lives. getting someone mid-career at the point where they can be earning a lot to jump over to a company like us. They have to really believe that they can take it from 10x to 100x and that they can help make the difference. And that's what we have to do now. We have to get somebody like that who will make the jump, who has worked for the very largest company.
Okay, so when you say you have to sort of make that jump now, and the next question is regarding the board, and the question is, the performance of the share price this year has been disappointing. Do you feel that changes to the board would bring a new dynamic and reinvigorate the company, and is that being considered?
I mean, absolutely not. I don't think the board makes very much difference to the performance of the sector in the last 12 months. Almost every company that I look at, and I hold a few of them, and quite a few perhaps of the people watching or listening to this will hold a few of them. Most of them are 50% or thereabouts off their highs, wherever their highs were in the last 12 months. And I can think of a few who perform much worse. If you take the ones that are either our direct neighbours, for example, in Australia, or that I've been involved with elsewhere, like POW, ECR, they're down the same amount as us. In the end, you can do well and you can do things, but the temperature of the water in which we all swim is determined by external factors. And the fact is that, for whatever reason, having had an upward wave at some time in the last few months of last year, beginning months of this year, reached its peak, is now a downward wave. This is a time probably to be buying, but I don't think any director would suggest that by changing one director or changing one name, you have a magical effect. The price will suddenly leap out from the throng and start to perform differently.
Okay. Now, you've described this as a transformational year for the company. How is that transformation going, and how can you ensure that it is reflected in the stock price?
Yes. Well, as people have said, in the short, I think it was Warren Buffett said, in the short term, the market is a counting machine. In the long term, it's a weighing machine. We have to just make sure that we're increasing the weight of what we have, because there will be those up and down cycles, and they're particularly strong in small companies and particularly strong in the mineral sector, where you do get these up and down waves. What we have been able to do is we've been able to give much more stability to the company. First of all, we made ourselves much more liquid, improved our balance sheet. In fact, even in the last few months, we've taken one big step on that in repaying more than £1 million of debt to improve our balance sheet and make it look really very strong. We still have millions of pounds of marketable investment left. We haven't needed external finance. We won't need external finance for the foreseeable future. We're able to handle our programs internally, and we have a program of floating out or IPOing some of our assets, which gives us optionality on whether we then follow them, whether we bring in outside finance to do everything. Because what we don't want to do is to dilute existing shareholders when we think there's a lot of value that can be extracted from the existing portfolio, and we spent years putting ourselves in a position to extract this value. Now, what we have that we didn't have a year and a half ago, we have Kenya back, we have drilled in Congo, we have been able to drill in Kenya, waiting the results of both those things. We have got additional opportunities in Congo, incidentally, and we have created a whole new business in Australia, which was as a result of lockdown, having more time on our hands, and we are going through the flotation process of that at the moment. The final version of the CPR just arrived, I think, this morning, and we have also, a result of quarantine restrictions, not being able to come back directly from red zone countries, created new businesses similar to what we did in Australia in both Ivory Coast and Burkina Faso, which we believe are listable in themselves. So, in the last 2 or 3 months, we've created, I think, 7 or 8 new companies, and we have some other things that we're building up portfolios on, which is specifically in response to market demand, where people have come to us and said, we'd like to float something like this or like that. Can you assemble a portfolio to do it? And we share the benefit. And we've been able to do all of this for virtually nothing. it's been sweat equity rather than cash. So when we look across the board of what the company has, I see both fantastic value in our big projects that take great amount of time to bring out, but also I see a series of events that we can rely on, which will produce shorter term liquidity or value.
Okay. Now, given the success of Central Copper Resources in raising money, what are the prospects for the DSC Copper Cobalt?
When we went to Congo, we were at the early end of we don't like to be too early, we don't like to be too late, but we were on the early side going into Congo. And what we said is, look, if copper is really going up, if there is long-term demand for cobalt that's going to be sustained and increase, then you can't avoid the Congo. And there have been huge governance improvements in the Congo, and the political environment has improved, and it's become one of the achievements of the last president, who is often maligned, has been to create effective armed forces and to a stable military that is able to protect the country against external threat. So I think things are a lot better than they were. And we said, we think that people will start to follow us in, and we will be seen as having got in there early and got good assets. Well, now, as you say, Central Copper, for the first time that anyone can remember, has raised money for a London listing on Congo. And there are stories in the last few days about Rios going into Congo. So whereas it was sort of middle-sized, adventurous companies with very entrepreneurial management, like Rand Gold, like Ivanhoe, like Glencore, sorry, how can I forget Glencore? Like Glencore, that were in there. I said eventually the blue chip will follow in, because you can't not be in Congo in some ways. And if BHP are coming into Congo, that will really prove that. So I think that we know that if you drill in Congo and find copper, you can find things at 2.5% of it. So you'd be very happy to get something at 1%, even less than 1% in other countries. But you would think, well, 2% plus in Congo, yeah, okay. And one of the reasons for that has been more difficult to raise money for Congo, so more difficult to develop projects, and fewer people interested. And you have to put a price on all of that. Now, that discount will be, you think, reducing over time. We will have to see. I mean, nothing happens in a day, but we have done our apprenticeship there. We know our way around these well. We get presented with good opportunities, and we have some under our belt already. This Saturday, I'm going to Lubumbashi to finalize something we expect to be very exciting, which is within our existing portfolio. We'll just put it on a better basis.
Okay, well, we're about halfway through the questions, Andrew, so we'll cut this video here and we'll put this into 2 parts, and we'll catch up again in a bit.
Yes, I don't think we want to try people's patience too greatly. I know there are a lot of questions, and perhaps I haven't given the shortest answers, but then there's a lot to say, and perhaps we should split it in 2. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to this Stockbox interview. For more information, interviews and videos, visit our website at stockboxmedia.com or give us a follow on Twitter by searching @StockboxMedia.